If you falsely accuse a man of being your baby's daddy, it's called parentage fraud, and it's no joke. It's a new era. Ladies are legally free to be with whomever they feel free to be with. And for some women, an honest mistake could be made. Just make sure you're sincere and you've done your homework. And if you're making a legal claim to force a resistant man to claim your child as his dependent, make sure you can back it up with the facts.
Welcome to The Wall. In today's video, we will see the second part of the story where a woman finds out that her father is not her real father 32 years later. We will see who told her, how the father who raised her reacted, and the version of her biological father. We'll also see how her mother ultimately caused so much damage to the family. We want to invite you to smash that like button and help us reach 100,000 subscribers by the end of the year to get our first plaque. That's the only support we ask for, man. Add your grain of sand to the movement, share your experience in the comments for any man who needs it, and without further introduction, let's get started.
So who sent our anonymous DNA text? That turned out to be my cousin, bio dad's brother's son. I believe he was told the story and he felt bad. And my personal Facebook was attached to my business page, Facebook, which had my contact info. So he's able to contact me like that. And I'm glad he did. If I sound like hot garbage, I'm recovering from COVID. I feel grateful that he told me. There's nothing worse than knowing people know something about you that you don't know. No? I feel like after realizing bio dad was not the one who had sent the text, I feel like it made a little bit more sense because he might have kind of closed off to the idea of ever being able to meet me. So maybe that's why it was difficult for us to be super close at first.
That's how the world works. Only another man helps another man. The nephew, surely seeing how his uncle looked at his daughter from a distance, came from a similar situation and warned his cousin. But I want you to see how she is even afraid of the reaction of her father, the one who raised her, because it is difficult for that man who was the real victim in this whole case. That woman did a lot of damage to that man, deceived for 32 years thinking his only daughter was his. Let's see how the daughter talks about this.
Okay, for everybody here for the daddy story, I have an update for you. My dad who raised me is driving in to visit me as we speak. I'm going to see him for the first time in 4 years, since before COVID. And I am nervous because he is the one who raised me to be non-confrontational. And you're having two non-confrontational people having a confrontational conversation. And it's going to be emotional and it's going to be, I'm dreading it, but it needs to happen, right? We're just going to say the whole, you're still my daughter, you're still my dad. I'll probably fill him in on what's been going on between me and bio dad, but there's really nothing. I feel like I've recently got to this point where I accept the role that he is in my life, and he's kind of a sperm donor. I don't get this parent vibe from him. I don't get this feeling that he wants me in his life, and it's hard for me to explain, but just trust me when I tell you this. From when we met, from our communications, I just don't really get that vibe. And that's okay. He didn't ask for me to be born. So he doesn't really owe me anything. So my dad is still my dad. My dad who raised me is still my dad. So hopefully it's not going to be super awkward. It's so weird to think it could be awkward with your dad, literally the person who raised you. But so yeah, after getting over the definite rejection that I felt after meeting him, I just realized he's not the one that sent the text message. He's not the one that facilitated me finding out this information. So, I mean, it hurt, but that's life. and I had to move on. So I will move on to the family that I have and that I still have contact with, which is, my dad and one of my sisters. It's how it is. I was reached out to by a couple women at some podcast company about making a podcast about my story, and I don't feel super good about it. It was like this it almost came across as like this fairy tale story, right? Of like this, like literally like a movie where the mother keeps the daughter from the dad and he follows her, and that they find each other and they look just alike, and it's beautiful and they live happily ever after. And it's just, it can be like that, but we're just not like, it's just not like, it's just trust me.
I don't know how that man would take it. 32 years raising a daughter, only to find out later in life that she isn't his. It's painful, and she's his daughter. But look at how she's intrigued to know her biological father. That's why I say it again. Raising another man's seed is not good, because a father is the one who plants the seed. The child will always have a stronger desire to know their real father. I'm not saying she should stop loving the man who raised her, but his blood doesn't run through her veins. Brothers, don't be deceived like this. If that man had had the choice 32 years ago, I don't know if he would have raised Chad's seed. That's why a woman's past matters. Getting involved with a single mother is dangerous for a reason. He met a woman with 2 kids, helped her financially, married her. And when he could have at least had his own child with her, she also deceived him. That woman was a giant red flag with a disastrous past, and he didn't consider any of that. Look at how it ended. Here's what he says in a letter he sent to his daughter.
He wrote me a letter. So he basically says, like, that, he's not very good at talking and having those kinds of, conversations. Either am I. Clearly, we haven't really spoken too much about it. But he says, like, obviously I'm devastated by this news, but my concern is only for you. And then he said, like, you're my daughter. You're always my daughter. He goes, you're my girl. He said, none of that's ever going to change, but that, like, he'll be here for me whenever I'm ready to talk about it, but, like, no pressure. He said, like, don't take this letter as as an indication that you need to reach out right away. He just said, I want you to know that I love you and care about you. I feel like, if anything, it just confirms that I really lucked out in the dad department. I mean, for real. Despite, like, maybe not... my bio dad not reacting as emotionally as I maybe expected him to. Really, like, how fucking lucky am I? I've been kind of emailing back and forth with my bio dad a little bit. He still hasn't really acknowledged the whole TikTok situation, but for the best, I guess, right? No news is good news. If anything, he probably just saw it and was like, no big deal. My bio dad's been, like, kind of talking about our families meeting up this summer, which would be, oh my God, I'm sorry I keep clearing my throat. It should be really exciting. I would really like him to meet my kids. And I'd really like my husband to meet him and all that kind of stuff. So that would be ideal, but we'll see what happens. I was working today, and I told one of my longtime customers about, like, the story of, like, what's going on. And she was like, oh my God. She's like, is this a real story? I was like, yeah, it is, actually. I swear at some point of me telling that story, every single time, I have, like, a moment of shock being like, am I talking about myself? Is this my story? So, yeah, I mean, that's your update, guys. Really no conversation with my mom since the toxic emails came through right before Christmas. For the best, right? Okay, here's up close, no filter of my makeup. Bye.
Blood is thicker than water. Look at how the father who raised her writes a worried letter, saying he loves her. She is more nervous about her husband meeting her biological father and how the family reunion will go and all that. The mother seems to have cut ties, but now in the next video, we'll see the biological father's version. When this woman talks to him, he tells his side of the story. What I'll tell you, men, is that divorce and being in a relationship with a modern woman is difficult. The only thing somewhat salvageable these days is having children. Don't let them stick you with a child. Mandatory DNA tests, always. Tell the woman you're with because it's hard to find out something like this 32 years later. Don't carry another man's responsibility. Don't be the beta provider, doing the work for another man for free, much less fixing these women's mistakes. Always get a DNA test.
I'm spiraling right now. Clearly. I texted my dad today, my bio dad, kind of clarifying some information. And, I find out that he really didn't consent to having a child at all, and it was all done by manipulation. My mom wanted another baby and told him she just did what it took to have another baby. It's just like, I feel so guilty, He didn't ask to have a child. I can't imagine what it would be like to not consent to that. It's like, imagine all of a sudden, questioning if you should even exist. Almost wishing you didn't for the better of him. But my sister says, so what? You found out you have a different dad. So fucking what? It's not that big of a deal. It's kind of a big deal. I'm not a puppy. You want a baby? Go get IVF. You don't go lie to people. You don't go pick one out at the store. And then lie and never tell somebody. It's just so inconsiderate. And I'm so disappointed and embarrassed to be the product of somebody so inconsiderate. I'm embarrassed. I'm just starting to feel like this man owes me nothing. And no matter how close or not close he is to me, it doesn't matter because he genuinely doesn't owe me anything. If he never talks to me again, he doesn't have to, because he literally didn't want me to exist. Not didn't want to, just didn't consent to me existing, Let me just clarify. Ultimately what happened was that my mom wanted another baby. She was unable to have a baby with my dad who raised me, and manipulated somebody into doing the act and lied to them about being on birth control in order to have a baby. And it was successful. So here I am, and I'm gonna be okay. Everything's okay. You know what I mean? Ultimately, everything happened. It's over now. I'm already here. But yeah, I just am kind of going through the emotions of finding out that you have a different dad at 32.
Oh my God!
I imagined it. Man, what we see here happens a lot. Women fall for a Chad because of his good genes and want a child from him at all costs. They invite him to be intimate just for his seed. This happens thousands of times. It's an everyday thing with athletes. These women go crazy looking for the seed of one of them. That's how women are. Why do you think they later look for the beta provider to raise the child? They seek the best man to teach values, be a good father, and have a better future, but they want the alpha seed, the best of both worlds. There are men who realize this when the woman is obsessed with giving their child a name that has no relation to any of her or the father's family members. Who do you think that name belongs to? A Chad who was her true love, or even the true father? That's how bad they are, men. I see why the guy never showed up to look for his daughter. He was only concerned that the beta provider would take good care of his seed. He didn't want a child, but he surely knows that in this country, even if you don't want to be a father, you're forced by the state to support the child. Maybe he wanted his daughter when she grew up, or wanted her to be aborted, and in this country, only the woman decides if the child stays or not, because the man has no rights. But let's see how he gets along with the mother in the final part of this story.
I didn't clarify in the original video, but people do go to college. outside of being 22. They were 35 and 25. So yeah, we are no contact. It's nothing I used to say my biggest fear in life was losing my mom. We were enmeshed. We were so close. It was, I will never be that close with anybody. And I feel like now as I get older and I get more farther away from it, I feel like it was probably intentional. But maybe that's just me being cynical. No, we don't have contact. This was right after something humongous that had happened. So this wasn't just a one-time issue. This was like, we had been going through so much. This was like I was almost numb to the pain when I got hit with this. And it was like, are you kidding me? Like, it was unbelievable. She like really continued to lie about it, and yeah, more stuff, but never say never. Maybe one day we'll have a relationship, but for right now, I am protecting my peace. And yes. You are so right, Jacqueline. How dare we hold narcissists accountable for their actions? How dare I judge her for lying to me my whole life? My dad my whole life. My bio dad my whole life. My entire family our whole lives, right? Probably shouldn't judge her for buying me the 3-day juice cleanse when I was 9, or taking me to Weight Watchers when I was 13. Who cares that she almost slept through my wedding and the birth of my second child? Who cares that when I was in the hospital dying from an ectopic pregnancy, I'm calling her, begging her to help me with my kids, and she tells me, I can't, I'm too sick. Come to find out, she had taken her prescription of Xanax, like in 1 week as opposed to a month, and was withdrawing and could die. So I got to leave the hospital Christmas Eve night to go spend Christmas with my kids. I was so excited. But instead I had to drive to my mom's house and call 911 to have them pick her up and take her to a psych ward because she was withdrawing, because she was addicted to just everything. These comments always come from people that look like Jacqueline. You know what I mean? Like guilty moms who don't like seeing their kids get upset that they were treated improperly. Last thing, I am also a mother, and I would never dream of doing to my children what was done to me. And every single day, I actively make choices to hopefully not send my children down the same path that I was sent on. I'm going to be in this spot. I'm going to be struggling with these things until I die.
That woman is a disaster. That man was just for fun. She was 10 years older than him, married, and wanted an adventure to get pregnant. Surely her husband hadn't gotten her pregnant during their years of marriage, so she decided to give him a child. The best idea she came up with was to cheat on him with a 25-year-old Chad with good genes. What a genius move. But one thing you can be sure of, like the wall, is karma. Karma will always catch up with you sooner or later. Everything started as a disaster. She ruined her marriage and continued hiding the secret. 32 years later, it comes out, but even before that, look at what the daughter says. She's a disaster of a mother. That's why the past matters, because many men don't investigate a woman's past, and it only brings chaos to their lives. Later, they end up like the father who raised her, thinking she was his daughter but was used by this woman. Many women send messages asking him to forgive her because she's his mother. If it had been the man, do you think they would ask for forgiveness for him? Because women don't like to take responsibility for their actions, that's why karma always catches up. Today, she has destroyed the lives of many in her family, and people ask for forgiveness for her. Do-me a favor. We've reached the end of the video, but before we go, the questions are for you. Do you think her mother deserves to be forgiven just because she is her mother? Why do you think her mother caused so much harm to her family? If you enjoyed the video, make sure to give it a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, and hit the notification bell. Your support means the world to us and motivates us to create more content. Stay tuned for the next exciting video from the wall.